Now, US President Joe Biden is in Pennsylvania to discuss police funding, crime prevention, and the bipartisan bill to combat gun violence. The measure was signed into law in June, the first in nearly 3 decades. Mr. Biden's visit is the first of 3 over the next week in the political battleground state that is crucial to deciding control of Congress and the 2024 presidential election. Well, let's bring in Arise US correspondent Eric Ham, who is following the president's movement from Washington. Good to see you, Eric, of course, and Joe Biden in Philadelphia and other parts of Pennsylvania. Big speeches expected there.
Yeah, that's right, Charles. And what we're seeing now is President Biden is beginning to move into a campaign footing. We know that the midterm elections are less than 80 days away. And what we're seeing now is the president is beginning to sharpen his rhetoric against Republicans. And now we're seeing that he will be delivering this major speech on crime today from Philadelphia. In addition, we know that he is going to be giving a major speech tomorrow as well. That speech will focus on issues such as the economy. But what we're seeing now is the president is going right at the heart at a number of issues that voters deeply care about heading into the midterm elections. One of them, of course, is being the issue of crime. And so the president also, we know, as you mentioned, signed that historic law that addresses the issue of gun violence. For the first time, we have seen gun violence legislation passed in the United States in more than 3 decades. And so now what we're seeing is the president is beginning to not only tout the record of his administration over the last 2 years and the many successes, but we're also seeing that now the president is going at the heart of what he believes to be semi-fascist, and I'm using his words, describing what he is calling the MAGA Republicans. And so now what we're seeing is a president who is now moving in a position where he recognizes that there is a growing number of Republicans that are attempting to try to thwart not only the message, but also the policies of this administration. And we're seeing this administration begin the process of responding.
And of course, presumably that use of the phrase semi-fascism is focused on the Trump philosophy. And it's interesting, of course, that Mr. Biden stepping up his public appearance, as you said, and he was born in Pennsylvania, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. In fact, what we're seeing here is the president is now, there are going to be a series of speeches that the president is delivering, and he is focusing on many of these battleground states, one being, of course, the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was a hotly contested state in 2020. There's a massive race right now taking place for control of the Senate in the state of Pennsylvania, as well as the gubernatorial race there. President Biden is now using that state as a launching pad, not only for the midterm elections, but also for his future 2024 presidential campaign as well.
Well, let's just switch gears slightly, Eric. We're hearing about the U.S. Supreme Court decision ending abortion rights and the fact that it's going to disproportionately affect different sections of women in America.
You're right, and one of the massive detriments to this ruling by the Supreme Court was not only in terms of what we're seeing, 10-year-old girls that have been raped and who have had to have abortions, but also there are communities, particularly women of color, Black and brown women, who many reproductive health experts believe will be adversely affected by this new ruling by the Supreme Court. And so already we have seen the United Nations already do a study bringing in a total of 18 experts to look at this issue. But also, Charles, one of the biggest takeaways from this is how we're seeing reproductive rights and women's health now hanging in the balance. And so these are all issues that are going to be front and center in the midterm elections. In fact, Charles, a number of Republicans who actually welcomed the decision by the Supreme Court are now in the process of beginning to scrub their political campaign websites of any mention of their support of the overturning of abortion as they run for office. And so what we're seeing is this is not only becoming the key issue that will determine the outcome of the midterm elections, but also, Charles, we're seeing the president as well as members of Congress and other Democrats begin to use this as a cudgel against Republicans as well.
And I wonder what the mood is like in America at the moment, Eric, with this midterm election approaching, obviously fiercely competitive for the two main political parties. But what about ordinary Americans?
Well, you're right, Charles, because while we have to remember, while many are looking at who will control the House and the Senate, there are still a lot of down ballot races. There are a number of gubernatorial races that are up for grabs, as well as state legislatures. And you're right, this is having a direct impact on many Americans. Issues, bread and butter issues that Americans deeply care about. This is why we are seeing rising inflation is something that is of concern to many Americans, as well as rising crime. And these are issues that the Democrats have attempted to try to tackle as they head into the midterm elections. These are going to be key issues that we're going to see President Biden address over the coming days as he begins to move in this campaign footing. And also what we're seeing is many Americans, based on polling data, believe that the United States is heading in the wrong direction, not just because of the rising inflation and crime, but also they believe that democracy is also something that is hanging in the balance also.
Eric, we're up to date. Thank you ever so much, as always. Clear as a bell analysis. Eric Ham, Arise US correspondent, talking to me there from Washington.